Hey, it's Brock here with Rock Hill Farms, and I'm out here in the shop today to set up this new plasma cutter, test it out, and compare it to this plasma cutter I already had. But as I was preparing for this video, I started thinking, which is a dangerous thing, and I decided I'm going to give you about a nickel's worth of my opinion along with this plasma cutter review. And if you don't like them, that's okay. We don't all have to agree. You can skip ahead and watch the plasma cutter part. But doing what I do, maintaining this property, running equipment, I think it's almost imperative that you have a certain amount of metalworking skills. And every skill you can add to your knowledge and your experience makes you more capable, and it saves you a lot of money around a farm or a homestead, being able to get things done yourself instead of always paying someone to do stuff for you. I just applied that to metalwork, but it's not really just that. You know, can you do your own plumbing? Can you do your own electrical? You know, what can you do to solve your own problems and solve problems for other people instead of always needing someone else to solve problems for you? And one thing that's been bothering me lately is that I'm constantly needing metalwork done, and I always have to call a friend, find somebody, because I can't afford to pay a true professional. It's a lot of money to have metalwork done. So I'm always trying to get someone to do me a favor, you know? And so I said, enough is enough. I'm going to learn how to do some metalworking. And I've got a big project coming up where I'm building a bridge on the other side of my pond, and I've been gathering up the materials, and I'm going to learn how to do some of this myself. So the background story goes something like this. When I was in high school, as a junior, I took the ACT, I think that's still what they use, but the college placement test. I got the highest score in my class on the college placement test. And I'm good at taking tests, I'm good at learning and picking up information and being able to figure things out. But I'm not good at following the rules or staying within a structure. And I could have told you at 14, 15 years old that I would not have a career working as like an executive at a big company or doing anything like that. It does not fit who I am. And I've got 2 kids in high school now, 3 kids that have graduated high school recently. And what I see now is the same thing I saw when I was in school. There were 2 categories that the school pushed for. And 97% of people had to do a college prep program, because if you weren't going to college, you were going to be a failure in life. And then the other 3% was, well, it was almost treated like if you weren't smart enough, you needed to go do the VOTEC program, learn how to weld, learn those practical skills. And I think that's such BS, because what I'm noticing in society is there are fewer and fewer people who know how to do things. And I don't want to be one of those people that's helpless all the time and doesn't know how to do anything. And if you need your air conditioner fixed in my area, you have a hard time getting someone to come out. If you need an electrician, you have a hard time. And it's good for those professions because they can charge an absolute premium because of supply and demand. There are more people who need electrical work done than there are electricians. So they can charge a premium, and if you're on a budget and you need work done, you better figure it out, because good luck getting someone who will come out and someone you can afford. It just is what it is. So supply and demand tells me that we need less people going to college to study psychology or whatever kind of degree that they're going for. And we need more people in the trades learning how to do things. We need more plumbers, we need more electricians, we need more welders. And that's my little rant. And the other thing is, the cost of a college education is so ridiculous. When I was a junior and got that ACT score, I was given a scholarship just based on the ACT scores that would have paid for all of my tuition and gave me cash back after my expenses were paid. And, I just didn't want to go. I knew I wasn't going to do that. And you know, prices were high then, but they're insane now. Now, you've got people borrowing $50,000 a year to go to school without any practical application of how their degree is going to pay those student loans or pay back that debt or provide their living. It's just like something you have to do. I'm all about education, but I kind of see a turning point coming in the education system where there are college professors who could teach you everything about a subject on YouTube right now. So there's certifications and there's education. And education costs almost nothing now. And if you want to learn how to weld, you can do it on YouTube. But for me personally, knowing what I know now, if I could go back to school, I mean, I took calculus. What purpose did that serve? I took all those classes were, you know, English literature and physics, and I was taking AP classes. What purpose did that serve? I wish I would have took welding. So, it's just my thoughts on it. I hope a few of you stuck around and we'll check this thing out. So this is my dad's plasma cutter. If you're wondering why I have a plasma cutter and I've got another one, number one is, as you guys know, part of what I do on YouTube is review products. So I get offers for products all the time. And this was sent to me to review. But big part of the reason I took it is I've been using my dad's plasma cutter, and that means he doesn't have it. So I don't really like borrowing things long term. So if you're a regular, you already know this, but I've got a 5% discount code at Vevor. This is supplied to me by Vevor. They make reasonably priced tools and supplies for getting work done. So if you are interested in this or anything else Vevor has, you can get 5% off with my discount code. And I also, I think, get 5% of the sale or something like that. So it benefits me to say nice things about this plasma cutter. But I'm also just going to tell you the truth. I give that speech, or try to give that speech, every time I have a sponsored product, because I want everyone to be on the same page about what's happening. Actually, the way I ended up with this plasma cutter, I got a bunch of pipe that I've been cutting up, and I thought, man, I ought to try my plasma cutter, see if it's faster. But the fence is a jumbled up mess, and it's down the hill, and my shop with my power source is up here. My generator is not 220. So I contacted Vevor and asked for an extension cord that would let me run my existing plasma cutter down the hill. They said, sure, do you want a plasma cutter too? I said, well, I guess I might as well. I'll give my dad his back. So the product I asked for was this cord. It's a 50-foot extension cord that fits this plasma cutter. Yeah, so this is the cord off of the plasma cutter, and it does fit. They've also, you can run this off 110, so they've got an adapter where you can plug into this and plug it into 110, but I'm going to be cutting heavier metal, so I'm definitely going to need the 220. All right, I know I've rambled enough, but I was just thinking I'd like to put a bow on what I was saying earlier. And I know a lot of my audience is my age or older, but if there's any young people in your family, you got kids or grandkids that actually value your opinion, you know, I don't like to tell anybody what to do or really give that much advice. But what I'm going to tell my own kids is, man, I think I would find out who I am, find out who you are and what you want to do before you spend $100,000, borrow $100,000 trying to learn how to be somebody else. If you want to be a doctor, that's phenomenal. I think that's great. And you got what it takes to do that, go do it. And I think you'll have to go to college. You can't YouTube your way to that. So we need those people too. I don't want to be down on the educated, but I'm just saying, if it's not for you, don't let anyone force you into it. So step one is putting on the actual cutting head, the lead. Okay, the lead screws in right here. Then there's a dial that says pilot. And then next to that, there's another spot, and this electrical wire goes right there. And then we've got a ground clamp, and there is a third spot for that to go in. Okay, and it's, for a minute I wasn't sure how it's held in, but there's a little tab on the end. You just push that in and then twist. Okay, so we've made those connections on the front. Then we've got an air pressure regulator that goes on the back. I almost missed a step whenever I was plugging everything into the front. This knob, it looked like an adjustment knob, but it's not. This is where you clamp this extra wire on that I was calling a ground wire. There's a screw here that says pilot. You slide that over it and then put that knob back on. Next, on the back, we've got an air chuck here. You put a little hose on it, come up to this pressure regulator that also appears to have a water separator on it. I watched a bunch of videos about this exact plasma cutter, and everyone said to put a quick connect chuck on here and replace the gauge they send you with one that comes in PSI if that's what you're used to looking at. So I've done those two things. We've hooked the air up. I will say on this plasma cutter here, it just has the chuck on the back, adjustment on the top, and a pressure gauge built into it. And that seems like, well, that's a nicer feature. But to be fair, this plasma cutter costs twice as much as this one does. So you would expect little things like that to be nicer. One thing though, is I do like having the water separator, because you definitely don't want, if you've got any water that's in your compressor, you don't want to be blowing that through your plasma cutter. So personal preference, I guess, which of those systems is better. Speaking of price, this is $299. Then obviously you can get 5% off of it. And you can find plasma cutters a lot cheaper than that, actually. But as far as a 50 amp with a no touch, that's a very competitive price. The next thing we need to do is turn on the air or adjust the regulator. So now we are at 40 and about 45, which is the main number I was seeing online. So I really think now it's as simple as turning it on. There's an on-off switch on the back that I've already got turned on, but we're not plugged in yet. So I'm going to go ahead and take this apart and show it to you. We got a safety on the trigger here. You have to lift that up so you can't accidentally turn it on. Then once you're under that, it's just a click. And you've got this piece right here, which is kind of like sets your depth. Can also be used as a guide for tracing a pattern. Because that's one of the big differences, if you're not familiar with plasma cutters, is they can do some more precise cutting like you couldn't do with something like a grinder or even a torch. Then on top of that, you unscrew this cap. And there are two pieces under here that are called consumables. Now, the other videos I watched said that these are easy to find locally, and both of them screw in. You've got this inner piece that's a consumable. I suck at terminology. I'm not going to know what to call them. And then you've got this outer cap that's a consumable. The other videos said that those are easy to find locally. So I'll find that out when I go to replace them. They give you 2 of each that come with it. Well, I guess 3, because there's one in the gun when you get it. All right, so I think we're ready to cut. All I've got to do is get some pieces of metal out here to use as a test, and then plug it in. I've scrounged up several types of metal. First thing we've got here, I don't know where these came from, but I've got a whole bucket full of these that are useful. But just for a test, I'm going to trim like a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch off one of them, because it's thin metal, which is what I was looking for. Next, I've got this stack of mower blades that I had sharpened enough times I wasn't sure if I was going to reuse them, and then I sold that mower. And then I've got this pipe that I've been working on. That's a really thick wall pipe. So these will be a good test. And keep in mind, I've only used a plasma cutter a couple times. I'm no expert. It's just trying it out. In terms of safety, I've never worn a welding helmet for using a plasma cutter. The spark is not nearly that bright. but I do like to wear some sunglasses. I believe they say that you're supposed to use like a shade 5 darkening. I don't exactly know what that means, but I think a good pair of sunglasses is good enough for me. And I do go ahead and wear the welding gloves. Probably not necessary, but you know, this is some rusty, crusty old pipe. So let's get everything clamped down. For the percentage of people here who aren't familiar, you've got a ground clamp just like with a welder, and you'll clamp this onto your material. And this is what's called a no contact plasma cutter. There are some types of plasma cutters, and this is shut off while I'm messing with it, where the end of it has to touch the metal to get your arc. And for those, it's hard to cut rusty material. But this is a no contact cutter, so you don't have to clean the rust off necessarily. Might still be better, but you don't have to. So let's get this clamped to the table and see how it cuts. That ain't going nowhere. This has a dial that goes from 0 amps to 50. And basically, the thicker the metal, the more power you need. So for this thin stuff, I've got it on 20. We'll see how it does. Just seeing if I could go fast across that thin stuff, and that was clearly too fast. If the sparks come back up towards you, you're not going through. They should be going down. Kind of messy, but I was able to make a hole in this. That is 200 thousandths. I was expecting an even number. 1875 is 3/16. When I put it up here, I'm getting it 1875. That's probably what it is. It's a little thicker down here, probably because of the bend. So this is a 3/16 thickness on these mower blades. And again, they're just junk, so we're gonna make a big cut in them. But I think I'm gonna try to cut down and then turn and come across, because that's the advantage of a plasma cutter, is you don't just have to make straight cuts. So I was able to make a whole series of cuts here in different shapes, and then bore a hole in this 3/16 material like it was no problem at all. I was able to make any shape or pattern of cut that I wanted without, any practice or experience. And I was able to bore that hole in an irregular shape. And beyond that, it's just skill and practice. that's enough of a test for me. Beyond this, I'm just playing and burning up consumables, risking a fire hazard in my shop. I just needed to know that it worked properly, and I can see that it does. Even someone like myself who doesn't have any experience using a tool like this, I can do some rough work, and with practice, I can get better at it, and that's all you can ask for. So, this plasma cutter and the other one were both 50 amp cutters. Anecdotally, this one seems to cut better, seems to work better. It's also newer. The other one was pretty old whenever I started using it. But this is an inexpensive unit. It's got plenty of power, and I think it's probably a good choice. So I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.